Brace the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an Enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. Start converting your B2B audience today. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started today at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
What's up, y'all? It's your host, Will, coming back for a new episode, Field Note Fridays, powered by Yamaha. Before we get to today's episode, I'm going to bring a Black Friday, Cyber Monday special deal to y'all that you don't want to miss out on. And what we've done over here at HuntStand is partnered with Muddy Outdoors to give y'all a free, that's right, free Manifest 2.0 cell camera that's valued at $100. Now, all you have to do is upgrade to Pro Whitetail today or buy Pro Whitetail if you're not an existing HuntStand user. So that's going to last from Black Friday today through Cyber Monday. So all you have to do, head to the link down in the description below, get upgraded to Pro Whitetail, get you Pro Whitetail, and that way you can claim your free Muddy Manifest 2.0 cell camera. So on today's episode, we got Lee Lakosky on here for the last part to the November Rut Series. And on this episode, we're going to kind of have a little bit of a recap of November for him. We're going to talk through that waning and post-rut time, and we're just going to go down a couple rabbit holes. But hopefully, you've been able to take something from this series, apply it to what you're doing, and hopefully you've been able to bag that big buck, or you're getting closer. And so again, y'all, we just want to thank y'all for tuning in to HuntStand Podcast, and here's our man, Lee Lakosky. All right, man, we ready to get this thing started?
Yep.
Well, Lee, welcome back to the final part to this November Rut series that we've been doing so far. And, man, I just want to thank you for all the time that you've taken to do this with me and just talk deer hunting and rutting to everybody out there.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I'm gonna miss talking with you every week. We're going to have to come up with another topic to talk about, right?
Oh, there's late season, shed hunting. We can dive into it all, man.
Right. Hinge cutting, all the timber work, and all the winter stuff. You could do them year round. You get up every morning and you think about deer and you're doing something for deer every day. So you could do it every week of the year.
Well, we just might have to, man. So, well, man, tell us, Tiffany finally got a certain buck down here recently. Tell us how that went down.
Yeah, Big Bacon, it's a deer. She's been, it's been hunting for probably 4 years. And he just kind of on and off. I was like, hey, Big Bacon's, showing up in the fields and something. So, it's been like 4 years she'd be after him, then he'd kind of disappear, and then she'd go on to a different one. And, cause he was he's always a big 8. And so not like a management deer because he had a big frame and good mass and stuff. But,
yep.
It wasn't like, a 200 that you were just on all the time. It was kind of like when he would show up, all summer, he's around all the time, and then during hunting season he's just kind of in and out. And normally you get a lot of pictures of him, but he was so huge in the body and stuff, and then he kind of ran the whole farm. And we were like, we need to, for the last 3 and 4 years, like somebody probably needs to shoot him because he's probably pushing so many of our good young ones off because he just runs the whole place. But he was hard to pin down. He never was like in one particular area. He'd be in what you'd get pictures of him every week, but never in the same place and never 2 days in a row. And so he's one of those very unpredictable type deer. And finally, we kind of pinned him down. I put a new food plot in this year, kind of specifically for him and another deer. And that was just a big CRP field. So we had like 3 fields in a row. So it was like a green field, and then a grain field, a big corn field, and then another green field. I just put a big pond in it. So that whole area, they were just kind of, all those fields are maybe just a couple 100 yards apart, right in a row. So you had like wheat and clover and a big pond for water. And then you had a cornfield, and you had a perfect 10, which is turnips and rape and sugar beets and all that stuff right in a row. And so he was just kind of running all of those. So you kind of just play the shell game of which one you'd sit at, because you started seeing him, in one of those 3 fields. And not every day, because when he, just like anything, when he was with a doe, he just disappear for a week. And so he kind of got in between, and she happened to pick the right shell a couple of days ago, and and managed to get an arrow in him. But man, was he ever huge. Probably the biggest body, biggest head, biggest neck out of any deer I think we've ever shot.
Really?
Yeah, just huge bases and huge mass. I mean, just like I said, it was just an 8-pointer with that one sticker, but he was still like 162 inches or something like that for a straight 8. And he doesn't have, like, his threes are not that long. It's not like, and his brows are not that long. And so much of it just made up in mass. And he did have like 12-inch twos, but his threes, weren't super long. Normally to get an 8-point in the 60s, you got to have giant brows and everything good. But the mass really was crazy on him.
Dang. Now, did y'all weigh him?
No, we don't have a scale here. It's never been, people ask that too. And a lot of times, like, gosh, I should get one. And I had one at one time that was just where you hang them up and had a digital scale right in it. I don't know what happened to that. I'll have to get one, because I'm assuming he was, close to that, close to that 300 pounds, probably like at least 280, 290s, not, with the guts in him. But he was huge. His head was incredible. When he walked up to that thing, everybody just sat there for about an hour and just looking at that thing. You just go, oh my gosh, look at that head and neck. I mean, Tiffany sitting there by it. Just dwarfed her.
I can't believe how big y'all's deer get up there. I mean, down here in Texas, obviously we don't get all the cold conditions that y'all do, but it's insane at how big your deer get.
Yeah, and that one was one of a kind. Like I shot one years ago, Gnarls Barkley, which is probably one of the most famous deer that we've ever shot, that had a body and a head like that. But I shot him fairly early in the year, so he kind of had the shorter hair and stuff. And this one with the longer hair, and their necks get so like wet and stuff, like when they're rutting all the time, and just the head and neck on him with the bigger fur on him and stuff. It was just incredible. I did measure it around the base of his neck. It's 36 inches around his neck.
Jeez, that is a big deer. Man, well, congrats to Tiffany. That's awesome.
Yeah, I know. And she's been like, that was her first deer, the first whitetail of the year, and she'd been coming so close so many times to so many other ones. And she was just being very careful, just she'd have them at 40 and, well, I'm just going to wait, see if they come a little closer. And normally she just shoots them at 40. Like this one, finally, she just shot him. I think it was like 45 yards or something like that. But that's a tough yardage, because just how much they're going to react at 40 is 40 to 50 are normally the worst ones for them ducking in their reaction. So we kind of got in our heads to shoot low, and of course she aimed a little low, where you'd want to, and he didn't even react at all. So with the shot was a little bit low, but still killed. He only went 300 yards. So it all worked out. But it's like, man, they're just so unpredictable, and you kind of like to shoot them at that 20 to 30, because no matter how much they react, they're not gonna react more than 4 or 5 inches. But when you get to that 45 to 50 is when they can drop 10 inches and stuff. So it's hard to know where to aim on them. And so she was just waiting and trying to get him closer. But heck, we're almost we're into the middle of, or the ending of lockdown pretty much. Most of our big ones are locked down, and just to see him on his feet, she was like, man, I've been hunting since October 1st. Man. So I'm gonna have to let her rip, and it all worked out.
Heck yeah. Well, speaking of, the end of the month, tell us what the deer are doing in your area. It sounds like they're kind of getting off lockdown, the back end of the rut. Like, tell us.
Well, you catch one here and there that are off, but it's tough right now. Like we talked about it earlier, that's why I just like October and December. Most people, oh man, the rut's coming November and sweet November and all this stuff. But to me, it's the worst time, because once they hit lockdown, you just don't know if they're even alive.
Yeah.
They go from one doe to the next. Like I have a big 4-year-old that just sickened me. He's right on our Missouri border on one of our farms, and I'm just afraid that Missouri gun season, somebody shot him, which they likely did, because it's been, I'm going on 3 weeks now since I've seen him. Ugh. And I had pictures of him, and you just don't know. They could be just from one doe to the next, and you just are not going to get a picture of them. But, so many times they're just in between. It might be a day or two. Tiffany, another buck that she was hunting, just showed up in daylight on several different cameras. But it was one day. We went and hunted them yesterday. We were going to do the podcast yesterday, but I was still on the tree stand with Tiffany because we're on a lot of bucks. But I thought that he would be around, and boom, now again, no pictures of him again. So I'm sure he's got a doe someplace. So that's what I just got in from. I was out moving cameras around and stuff and trying to figure out exactly where they're at. But it can be tough this time of year, but you just got to stick with it. Like for us, mostly we let the cameras do our work, just keep going out and moving them around. And when they're in between, they're going to go hit those pockets of does. And, so that's right now with Tiffany, we're just waiting until she'll go out in the evenings. But in the mornings, we're just sitting it out, waiting for them to show back up till we get back out there. And mostly because the kids have school and we homeschool them and stuff. If we didn't, if we were on a week hunt or something, obviously you'd be out there all day. But, when they're locked down, it's pretty tough. So a lot of time, just wait to start getting pictures of them.
Well, man, I took your advice last week. If you can, sit all day. And I was sitting in a stand location where, I've been telling you about this freak buck, and I've talked about it a little bit on the podcast. And about 6:15, where you can just start to see things, I had this freak buck walk right in front of my stand, and he circled through, and I waited till about 9. I said, you know what? I'm going to move locations where I think these deer are moving. And I had to go back to our hunting cabin to grab some extra gear to finish sitting the rest of the day. And he had made a complete circle, complete U-turn, went all the way across this 200 acres onto our neighbors, and I watched him come across this field chasing after another buck that he was pissed at, running at him. And so I went and got in this box blind, and it was just raining and nasty and everything, and all of a sudden, there he was, and I was able to take a shot at him, and it was the first midday buck I've ever killed.
Oh, wow. I mean, if it's November, most of our deer are between 11 and 2. And, but it's funny because like when we sat yesterday, just like on you on that deer, if they're in between does, they're like easy to kill.
Yeah.
I mean, relative. Because we actually saw one of the big ones, one of our really big deer. And, if people saw it, they'd think you're crazy because he's 5 and he's huge and huge mass and inside points. And you're just like, oh my gosh, that's a dream buck. But I want to get him through to 6. And I saw on the camera the day before that he was in between. And so bang, it rattled and he came right to the tree. And it was like, oh my gosh. I mean, he's a giant. I was like, no, we're going to try to leave him to 6. But then we had like 2 3-year-olds, an 8 and a 9 pointer. And it's like we sat there till about noon, but then it got to be where one of my buddies, John Hoyer's down here and is hunting the Missouri side and stuff of one of our farms. And, we wanted them to go out in the evening. So he was babysitting while we were out hunting. So we had to get out. But those 2 bucks, that they're in between those, we literally saw them like 10 times. They'd cruise down one ridge and then they'd be gone. Half hour later, they'd come from the absolute opposite direction. You're like, how in the heck did he get over there? And then he'd be coming back through this way and then from that way. And you rattle and they come running in. It's like when they're in between, it's like you're going to see them. They are moving. And we saw like all those bucks like 3 or 4 times during the, from morning until noon. So, if you can get one in between, and that's what's so nice about having like the cell cameras, you can see pretty much in real time, what's happening. So when you get a picture of one that's out by himself in a field, checking for does and one of your food plots or something, man, you got to get out there because they'll move a ton. And that's the time you can rattle and bang, they're right on top of you.
Yeah. It's a fun time of year. So last week we kind of talked about, we're starting to get in that time of year where some of these deer are going to be winding down from the rut. They're going to start getting more focused on food because there's even colder weather coming. So, their survival instincts are coming in. They're led by their gut. So how are you approaching kind of, if you will, that post-rut time of year? What's going through Lee's mind before he's even stepping foot out in the woods?
Well, that's what we're kind of doing right now, where I have a bunch of cornfields that are still standing, and we can't bait here in Iowa, but you can, if it grew there, you can knock it down, do whatever. And of course you have to knock your corn down and get it mowed and mulch up the stalks, so in the spring you can disc it back up again. So I'm just out knocking over corn and getting that all down, getting ready for next spring. But obviously that's just easier for corn. You can see them when the corn is on the ground. So we're just kind of getting all our food ready. And then I got a bunch of redneck blinds that are on trailers and moving them to our bigger food sources and things like that. That's what I just got in from. I've been doing that all morning, moving blinds around and stuff. And even though we're a couple of weeks away from that, we're still looking at, kind of the back end of the rut here. A lot of our big ones are still locked down. There'll still be some good rut action, but really we might run back down to our Illinois farm here after Thanksgiving. So by the time I get back, we're going to run out to South Dakota pheasant hunting and do some other things. So everything's going to start happening fast. Before you know it, it's going to be, early December and gun season. And, they're going to be concentrated on food. So I'm just kind of getting ahead of that and getting blinds moved and things like, mostly like for archery hunting. I love tree stands and I really love timber hunts and stuff like that. But when it comes to, gun season, muzzleloader, then, the blinds are kind of the way to go, because we got, our bean field food plots will be, a lot of them are 15 and 20 acres. It's big. I mean, they can be 400 across. I mean, they're pretty much suited for your muzzleloaders, and, they even have to come pretty close, within a couple hundred yards to be, to feel comfortable with that. So, our big food plots and getting, blinds set up on that, so they get used to those, rednecks in those fields and stuff. If they're not there already, I've just kind of gotten to where I use a lot of the trailers on those and I can move them around. So, kind of getting focused on food right now for late season, but, there's still a couple weeks of some rut action going, that we'll have here before that happens.
So are you still kind of doing what you're doing before, where, right now or prior, like a week ago, so we kind of talked about, you're getting in tight on bedding areas, or are you completely backing away from that and you're just kind of in that transition from bed to food, or what, how are you looking at that?
Well, it is. I mean, we were just, like I said, hunting where the does were. But now a lot of those are back with their fawns here. And so it's not as effective because there's just less of those does, but they still are coming and checking those doe groups. But once they do and there's nothing there, then they'll keep moving on, so it's not as, if you're in the peak of the rut, you just hunt the does, and man, there'll be bucks coming checking out those doe groups like crazy.
Yeah.
So now it kind of switched gears a little bit more, moving cameras around and seeing like where they are in between does. And it may be right where all the does are, because it's a big number of them and they're maybe waiting for one that hasn't. But it seems like a lot of times they're just kind of concentrated on food. Like when I'll see them, like either if it's a little bit warmer like it is today in the turnip fields, like my turnip and rape fields, they'll just be in there just gorging themselves. Or if when it was colder, it was like on our bean or corn fields. So I get a picture like that, then I just focus on that particular food source that they're on. And they maybe only be there for a day or two, but they'll be normally nearby for a day or so. And that's when you want to get in there and hunt them. But, it's tougher now, when they're winding it down.
Mm-hmm.
Then now I'm just kind of looking for a picture of that specific deer and getting in that area where you saw them, and then hope you hit the antlers together and you're going to see them. Like I said earlier on, you're just hunting the doe groups, and, even though they'll stick around the does right now, if there's none there, they'll be focusing on a food source. And so we're changing up a little bit, just more looking for this specific buck and then getting in right close to where we saw him, and hopefully he's in that area.
Yeah.
And you just never know where the last doe could be. They know more better than we are. So if all of a sudden you start seeing them hanging out on a specific field, that's likely there might be a doe over there that's getting close, or he just prefers that food source. So, less on the big doe groups. I mean, I'm sitting in my house right now looking out the back window, and we have like tons of does that are right in our backyard. And, for a couple weeks there, we had a couple of our big deer that were just bang right there all over those does.
Mm-hmm.
And now you see them on, they're just little bucks there. And I got those same bucks that were here. I look about a quarter mile away in one of our big corn food plots. I see one of those bucks that was here. I had a friend of mine, Brad True from Matthews. His son was hunting that buck, and now he's back over where he was in the summer. Even though all those does are there, he's not. None of the bigger ones are right there in our backyard where I can see they're off on food sources. So you can see how that changes from one phase of the rut basically to the next. And we're just lucky that I just have food plots right in our backyard. I can watch deer every single day and see how their habits are. And when some of these big groups, they were, at the top of the bell curve where does are coming in all the time, the big bucks that were right in our backyard, and I video them. And I have so much phone video footage of just in our backyard. And now still have 30 or 40 does back there, and you have a couple of little bucks might be chasing some around, but the big ones, boom, are back back where they were in the summer, more closer to their food sources that you normally find them in the summer.
Yeah. And I've seen that happen down here too, where I'll have bucks that they're all over my cameras, spring, summer, and all of a sudden it's like September rolls around, they just kind of disappear. Well, then right around middle December, they just reappear out of nowhere. It's kind of like, where are you guys going? Like for so long. So
yeah, it's crazy. And that's like I said, it's nice about living right in the middle of, everything is food plots around our house. I can watch usually, from 40 to 100 deer right from my house. As I go to the front, to the back, to the side, so you really kind of see what's happening and where, what stage of the rut it is just by getting up in the morning and looking out our blinds.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool thing to have. So when you're rolling into this, are you, you've talked about how you'll do all day sits. Do you do any all day sits in the late season, like when a front comes in, or do you even entertain that at all?
Usually not at that time because they bed up so much. Like yesterday, we would have sat there all day. It was so much fun. They're just deer going all the time, but we just couldn't because we had our kids here and John was watching them. So with kids and without a babysitter, full-time babysitter, something you got to take what you can get.
Yeah.
But like days like yesterday were perfect. You got deer on the feed. This time of year is perfect for all day sits because right up until, first week in December where they're kind of off of that and onto food. But then you watch them, like you'll see them, eat in the morning and then they just go lay up. They're so beat up and, skinny and stuff. They're not up moving around much. They'll just go and eat. And if you really pay attention to, the moon phases and stuff and the peak feeding times, you can get them, that's when they're going to, a lot of times you can get them up in the timber if you want to sit all day. If there's good, overhead or underfoot moon, like maybe at 10 o'clock or something, then I would, wait till they're coming off the food plots in the timber and get them milling around in there a little bit. And so then maybe sit another hour or so until it's overhead or underfoot at, like yesterday it was at 10:30. And sure enough, that's why, we had to get out at 12, but it went from about 10:30 to 11:30. Even by the time we got out, there were deer constantly that you saw up. A lot of it is just does up feeding that in the timber, like on acorns or browsing. But then those bucks are still in there, cruising around, checking all those does that are up moving. So you could do that like during, late season, but I'd definitely be looking at moon stuff if I was going to sit longer than, just the mornings or the evenings on those non-food sources.
Okay. So, man, I know we're getting tight on time here. One thing I'd like to ask is, what kind of any parting advice would you have, just to that gal that's going out there right after Thanksgiving and their deer in this post-rut strategy? Like what's, if they got to throw a Hail Mary, they're running slim on time, what do you recommend they do?
Well, like I said, right at the end, just Thanksgiving time can be awesome. That's, you're getting right at the bottom of the bell curve. So now you're kind of getting back to where it was at the beginning of the rut.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like if I just had like 1 week left or something, it was after Thanksgiving, I mean, that can be awesome. Then I would probably, you know, again, find where all the does are, even though like I'm not personally right now, because I can see on my cameras, you know, where some of those bucks are, and they're not necessarily at these big groups of does. But I think as it starts really winding down, I think in general, I would still just be looking for, okay, where are most of the does feeding? And likely because that's just a good food source at that time, and bucks are going to be wanting to do the same thing. So we see that so much, like the end of Thanksgiving or into the first part like of our gun season. It's just wherever you're piling the most deer into, that's kind of the prime food source that those bucks are going there to start trying to put some weight back on and stuff anyway. But they're also checking out the rest of the does. Like for right now in this period here, we got warm weather, just turned off warm like yesterday and today, and looks like the rest of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, you know, we can start looking at our green fields are more, you know, seem like there's more action in those than our corn or bean fields. So, you know, kind of look for the food source depending on the weather as well. And, you know, cameras are, you know, the biggest thing for me that just give us so much information. And without those, maybe a totally different story. But we're right now just really watching for, you know, for action on cameras. But like I said, if you didn't have that, and, you know, just that last piece, just get to a food source. And then if I would get close to it, like where we were hunting yesterday, there's just I could see a little green food plot that I have in the timber.
Mm-hmm.
So you could see all the does up in there that are hitting that, and the bucks going and checking them out. But you can always grunt or rattle them over, which we did. So just for fun, you know, when we saw them up there, even though they weren't ones we're going to shoot, you give them a grunt and you get them coming running right to the base of the tree. So that's what I would do. I'd say I'd get in the timber someplace, you know, near a food source anyway. And that's where you could sit all day. And, you know, they're going to, you know, we would have saw deer all day. We did right up until noon when we had to get out. So that's, you know, you just hope you can run into a big one.
Man, I love it. Love the advice. And I've loved getting to talk with you just over these 4 weeks, just talking rut hunting, deer hunting in general. And so to cap it off, how would you say this November was for you?
It was probably one of the best that we've had for action. And we kind of knew that just by, you know, number one, the cold weather that we had, not like right now, but the beginning and stuff where we had plenty of cold days and around the Halloween all the way up until yesterday. I mean, we had relatively cool temperatures.
Mm-hmm.
You know, moon phases were perfect early, and we got it again. I think it should be really good here, like on the 26th through the 30th. So I have, like, even though Tiffany's only shot one deer, I have total confidence that this last week of November, that with the moon phases and everything else, even though it's going to be warm, I bet you we're going to see better than average deer movement on it. So it's been great overall. I mean, I probably hunted this year less than I have in 20 years.
Really?
I just got very lucky. Like the deer that I wanted to go after, boom, I'd go out and I'd see them. And sometimes I decided, nah, man, I'm going to leave that deer. Let's go look at this one, see if I think he's big enough or old enough to go out. I very rarely went out where I didn't see one of the deer I was looking for, or at least a good one. And, you know, I hunted so few days. My first one, the 204 that I shot, hunted him for like 2 days. I went and looked at all these other bucks, and I was like, I might leave them. I'm going to leave them another year. Maybe I should leave them another year. That's all right. I'm going to go look at this one. Like the second day out, shot that one. And then Paddle's buck, I mean, didn't live on us. I maybe had 1-2 pictures, you know, in 8 months of him, but I just knew that once the crops start coming down, he comes in onto ours. I had one picture of him. I bet you he's going over to the Jordan field, and sat there the first morning, rattled, grunted, bang, brought him right into the field, shot him. So it was basically the first day I hunted for him. And then down in Illinois, the very first day I went out, hunted for that 9-point and shot him. So it was one of those years where it was, I mean, it's obviously a lot of luck to that too,
Mm-hmm.
but the weather conditions were right. You're getting pictures of them, visually saw them, say, all right, let's go hunt that one, and bang. You know, so it was probably one of the best ruts that I personally had. Even though Tiffany's only shot one, she's had plenty of encounters with the deer that she was hunting, and just was being very careful about, I want to get them like at, see if I can get them 30 or in. And so many times they were 42, 45, 55, where she just wasn't shooting. And, but she had tons of encounters with with the bucks that she was hunting. So it was a phenomenal year for her. And I think with this, next week right after Thanksgiving, this next week is going to be good moon wise and everything too. So I have pretty much full confidence, but pretty much before we get to December 3rd or 4th, that she'll have another one down.
Man, sounds like a great November. Capped it off with big bacon. So what more could you ask for?
Right. Exactly.
Well, Lee, man, I really appreciate your time and just podcasting with me. I know, like we talked earlier, we got plenty of other topics that we can go through the rest of the year. So just want to thank you for your time for this November Rut Strategy Series.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great talking with you, and I always love talking deer.
All right, y'all, there you go. We just want to thank Lee for hopping on for all these episodes of the November Rut Series to talk the rut, all the different phases, strategy, tips, and tactics for y'all to take and add to your whitetail hunting arsenal. And remember, y'all, we're partnered up with Muddy Outdoors to bring y'all a special Black Friday, Cyber Monday deal. All you have to do, upgrade to Pro Whitetail, buy Pro Whitetail, make sure you've got that, and then you're going to receive a free Muddy Manifest 2.0 cell camera that's valued at $100. All you have to do, head to the link down in the description and get that done today. You just have through Cyber Monday to get it done. So again, y'all, thank you for tuning in to the HuntStand podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time, 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.